The economic downturn has hit Florida hard. Since the recession of 2007, the number of people turning to food pantries has grown. Coming up next on Metro Center Outlook, we'll explore the issue of hunger in Central Florida.
This program is made possible by funding from the UCF Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.
Hello everyone. Welcome to UCF Metro Center Outlook. I'm Diane Trees, Director of the UCF Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies. The Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida has found innovative ways to get food to the hungry. Today we'll talk with its president and CEO about the challenges of meeting the need and trying to end hunger in Central Florida. But first, Alicia Callanan Mandigo gives us a closer look at the people and organizations relying on Second Harvest.
So some of our popular items are actually down on this shelf. We have some boxed milk, and this is actually one of the first items to go.
This is the Love Pantry, a pilot program for a new food distribution strategy.
One of the challenges that we have in our community is childhood hunger. A lot of that got really kind of emphasized with the 60 Minutes program that happened in the spring of last year. And that began a lot of people thinking about how do you affect childhood hunger. We came back and said, well, the easiest thing for us to do is to get it to the schools, because primarily the teachers know more about these kids than we could ever find out.
You may be familiar with the High Five Weekend Snack program that some Orange County schools send home on Fridays. The Love Pantry is a little different. There are 13 schools participating in the pilot program, which runs for 16 weeks. Parents are learning about the Love Pantry either directly from the school or from individual teachers. If a child needs to bring home food from the Love Pantry, all the school needs is a phone call from a parent.
So the parent would be invited to come in, and we would give them a number of items based on their family size, so the number of adults and the number of children in the home. Or another option, if they have lack of transportation and can't get to the school, is we send the food home in a backpack.
A food pantry like this relies on partnerships, one key partner being the Second Harvest Food Bank.
Without Second Harvest, I'm only relying either on buying food at a local grocery store or only on donations that come in to me from my supporters. We now get a chance to harness that energy around the community to the tune of 15, 20, 30 million pounds a year, which is very important to our community.
Peanut butter is also another helpful item. This is so versatile. We're actually getting some jelly too, so that the children can make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
The goal is to have the Love Pantry operating out of all Orange County schools. It's a unique, simplified approach to food distribution that could make a big difference for the community. Alicia Callanan Mandigo for Metro Center Outlook.
While the recession has ended, job growth remains slow and unemployment is hovering around 11%. Providing food for the hungry is what food pantries do, but Second Harvest has plans to do more. Joining me now is President and CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank, Dave Krepcho. Dave, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Last year, 1 in 5 Central Floridians needed help putting food on the table. That's some 700,000 people. How is your organization helping to feed them?
We're getting more and more innovative and creative and trying to find more sources of food and getting food to people. And you know, they say that old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. You know, there's just so many more people in need that now we're going out more so to farmers and growers, you know, to that part of the food chain, so to speak, you know, of the system. We're going out now to individual grocery stores where, you know, historically we used to go just to their distribution centers, so hundreds of retail grocery stores. We're doing things with helping people apply for food stamp benefits as well. So I kind of call that virtual food for Second Harvest. We don't have to store or distribute that, but we can help facilitate that process because we know where the people are. So you know, we're reaching out in a number of different ways.
So it's much more than just the traditional of the restaurants giving you what was left over, or...
Right, right. The low-hanging fruit, pardon the pun, you know, we know where that is, but we have to go higher up into the tree now, you know, to find more food.
How does your distribution work? You have individuals and you also work with other nonprofits.
Yeah, it's a combination. We, in the 6-county area of Central Florida, we're distributing food to just over 500 different charitable feeding programs, from shelters and soup kitchens to emergency food pantries to congregate senior programs, you know, a real mixture. And then we're doing some kind of like direct delivery as well. Like, for example, we have a High Five food pack program where we're going into 16 elementary schools, and on Fridays we're delivering these small kid-friendly food packs, and the teachers and the principals and the school administrators, they know what kids most truly are in need. So that's kind of a direct service, and on Fridays they give that food to the children so they have something on the weekend to hold them over. So so it's a real combination, and we're partnering with some nonprofits and doing 12 kids cafes in Central Florida. They're after school programs, you know, with a constructive activity, but food's the magnet, you know, and food's really necessary, and it might be the only food that child has after school as well.
When you're talking about children, I think with the economic downturn, there is more community awareness of this problem, but the traditional face of the hungry has been homeless or the elderly, and it seems to have shifted into a whole new demographic. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do we need to know about what's going on now?
Sure. Yeah, the most visible is the single male holding the cardboard sign, you know, and that population is growing as well, unfortunately, because of tough economic times. And on that homeless side of things as well, we're seeing more vets coming back from the wars now, where you know, they have head injuries or whatever, and there's issues. They can't find work now that they're coming back. So that population is growing. The senior population, as the baby boomers, I resemble one of those, you know, start to age out, you know, and maybe 10 years from now, we haven't seen anything yet in terms of the senior population growing.
Coming.
But yeah, that shift that you talk about, we're seeing a lot more families and a lot more children, and folks that look like your neighbor, and in a lot of cases, folks who are your neighbor, who are our neighbors, that can't find work. People that are well-educated with good work ethics, you know, looking for work, and they cannot find the jobs. And then, you know, those people have families. And the child hunger program in Central Florida problem is really large. Just a couple of days ago, a national study came out, and for Central Florida, 28% of the children are what they call food insecure. They don't have consistent, adequate, you know, access to food on the table or anything close to good nutrition. 28% of the kids. And in some of the counties, it's almost a third of the children. I mean, that should not exist anywhere. It shouldn't exist in the United States. It shouldn't exist in Florida. It should not exist in Central Florida.
You talked about the different dynamics and people who need help. It sounds as if there's an influx of white-collar and blue-collar workers as well, people who have jobs that are making choices between maybe a mortgage and food or utilities and food. So it's a whole scope, another aspect of the problem coming up.
For sure. You know, we run across literally thousands of these families, like you described. You know, one couple, they have 2 teenage kids. He's an engineer. She has a job as a billing clerk in a company. He lost his job. He's looking for jobs everywhere. You know, he'll go to fast food restaurants and they say, hey, you're overqualified. You know, he wants to work, the husband. They foreclosed on their home. They couldn't pay the mortgage. So some friends across the street were renting out a house, and they let them stay in the house for a while. She has now lost her job because the economy's not turning around, and the house is for sale. So here's a family that literally look like our neighbors, are our neighbors, that a year ago They had no clue that they'd ever be facing something like this. And that's the reality.
Any time to anybody.
It can, and it is happening, and it continues to happen. And it's just, for a while, folks like that, there's a sense of embarrassment, a sense of shame, or they are pride that they don't want to reach out.
Well, you actually, as a child, your family had an experience with a food bank. How has that experience affected you?
Yeah, when I was a little kid, growing up in the Northeast, my dad worked for a steel factory for 30-some years, and 5 kids to feed, and my mother stayed at home for many, many years, and then she took some part-time jobs. But 5 kids to feed, and my dad working in a steel factory, good work ethic, hopefully that's where I learned mine, no doubt. But, we were used to seeing the homemade meatloaf and the mashed potatoes and a big glass of milk, and a dessert and everything. And one time I came home to the dinner table, with the whole family, and the food wasn't there. And there was a glass of water, and there was this giant silver can with no label in the middle of the table. In big black letters, it said USDA peanut butter. And then there's like a sleeve of saltine crackers and like I said, a glass of water. And, being a little kid, it's like I thought it was a joke or something, I say, hey, Mom, what's the deal with this, And she said, David, and she uses my full name, I know I'm in trouble. She just said, eat what's in front of you and go do your homework, and nobody said anything. And this went on for a while. Thank goodness it changed back, and we had the normal food, so to speak. But my parents never talked about it. And they, there was an embarrassment there. They did not feel good at all about this, obviously. And it was not until years later, through some kind of story or talking to one of my siblings, is that my dad's steel factory went on strike. And it was for an extended period of time, and, my parents are paying a mortgage, they're paying a used car payment, those kinds of things, trying to put food on the table and all that other stuff. And, they got to a point where they had to reach out and need help. I'll never forget that.
Well, and I'm sure that brings a lot of the compassion that you have and the passion, too, for what you're doing. You are in the process of planning for a new building. What was the impetus in the economy the way it is for you to have a new facility?
Sure. Even before the economy went south on us, we were starting to do some planning for the future, because we were looking at all the indicators of what does the future bring in terms of having to provide food for people. And we saw poverty rates growing and things like that. And then the recession hit, and we're still in this economic slump. So that was a driver. And over the years, we've been in, one facility that we own, and then we had to lease a second facility because of the demand for food and the availability of some really great food for people too, and to prevent that waste, that's going.
That you had to turn away 2 million pounds of
it's
of
going
food.
upward of up to 4 million pounds of
meat
food.
and fruits and vegetables because you didn't have the space.
Exactly. So this new facility for the future is designed to be able to accept that food and get it out into the community and do some other really interesting things that we haven't been able to do,
Some of your programs, I know you use the words innovative and creative.
Yeah.
You have some programs in mind that are different.
Yeah.
Can you talk
For
a little
sure.
bit about them?
One we're really excited about is our community kitchen. And imagine a 2,000 square foot commercial kitchen, under the roof of this new facility. We have an executive chef from Universal, one from Disney on our board. We have a Darden executive chairing our board from the food business. And the chefs are creating a 12 to 16-week curriculum for students. And we're going to bring in kids that are aging out of the foster system that really want an opportunity and need an opportunity.
Another tangent, but
exactly. Bring them in, teach them basic culinary skills, and then we want to collaborate. They need to have life skills as well. So we're going to collaborate with Goodwill Industries. They do life skill training terrifically. We don't have to recreate this. And they're going to come in and collaborate. And on the kids aging out of the foster system, we're going to collaborate with an organization called Intervention Services that works with that population. So the kids, the students come in, they learn, they create these nutritious meals with our donated foods that go directly out into the community to help feed people. And then they graduate if they meet certain criteria, and we help outplace them. But the kitchen also has other things. We'll be doing nutritional education, which is really, really important.
I wondered if you had nutritional guidelines with the food that you distribute. That must be difficult to incorporate. But do you have them, and your plans now for the future?
Yes and no. How do you like that answer? We do have them on some of the programs where we're running like 20 summer feeding programs or these 12 or 13 kids cafes that USDA guidelines are strictly followed, okay? But there's a lot of other great food that we distribute, the vast majority of it, where there's no real strict guidelines, but we're able to provide, good nutrition. But the kitchen, there's so many aspects to it. We're going to be doing some in-house catering with that. Phase 2 for it might be external catering with a cause, The chefs, I want them to create a signature food item that we can brand. I mean, we get all these tomatoes donated,
Great ideas.
truckloads, right? Why not do a gourmet tomato sauce, and go to one of the retailers and say, could you put this on the shelf for a few weeks, and so there's nice brand awareness, and I think people would buy a jar of tomatoes like that,
These are great ideas, and you also have some really ambitious plans financially for the building. And
for
I was
sure.
reading that you want to delay construction until you have 90% of funds in hand. You do not want a mortgage. How are you accomplishing that feat?
Well, we are debt-free as an organization, and that's really a firm policy of Second Harvest Food Bank. And with this campaign that we're in of $15 million, we want to remain debt-free. If there's anything anybody learned during this recession, is that financial discipline, and control, because this is the community's money. It's not Second Harvest, so to speak, and people are trusting us to do the right thing with this. So we are not going to incur long-term debt. How are we accomplishing it? We have some momentum. Morgan & Morgan has stepped up as the lead gift. I mean, a gift of $2 million, just fantastic. Darden Restaurants with $750,000 for the community kitchen. We have Dr. Phillips Foundation and a number of other folks that are coming to the table. So we're about almost 2/3 of the way to our goal. We have a long ways to go, so we need a lot of help. We need a lot of help. So we're looking to the community to really respond. But yeah, we are not going to break ground until we have about 80 or 90% of the funds in place. And our goal is to have that money raised. Our projection is to have it raised by the end of 2011.
Wow.
So we could break ground in 2012, January, and we can be in this facility by December 2012. And the impact that this facility is going to have on Central Florida for years to come is huge. So we have a real sense of urgency, but we have to have that discipline, financially to not overextend ourselves.
The impact that you're talking about, so with the classes and with the ability to feed so many more people, with the fiscal responsibility that you obviously are very serious about, you said in your annual report that 96% of a dollar goes to feeding the people, 4% goes for administrative costs and fundraising. That's a phenomenal ratio. How is that possible?
We are really work hard at that. It's possible. One of the main reasons why that's possible is the amount of volunteers that we have helping us. We cannot accomplish what we accomplish without volunteers. And that, to me, is like the highest form of service, you know, for people. And we actually see volunteerism is up as far as Second Harvest Food Bank goes. We try to log every volunteer hour, and last year we logged about 36,000 volunteer hours. That means I don't have to hire and pay X number, a lot of employees, okay? So that's one of the reasons, and just a lot of what you call in-kind gifts and in-kind services. My board of directors are all volunteers, and they represent all the different kinds of professions that any nonprofit or any business would need. So they bring that talent to the table as well. And it's a lot of people just really practicing, really focusing on one of our organizational values, and that is stewardship of resources.
It sounds like you're very well managed and organized, though, as well.
We try our best on it, you know, for sure.
When you are talking about the outreach again, and 30% of families with children not having enough food to eat, what aspect in terms of policy, or what do our legislators or policymakers need to be aware of or could be doing that might help with this problem?
So glad you asked that question. You know, public policy is one of the biggest levers you can pull to impact, and we know what's going on at all levels of government right now. And in terms of feeding people that are in need, you know, that are unemployed, and the families of those people who are unemployed, right now in Washington, the community needs to know this, and we want our legislators to step up. And I've met with the staff here in Central Florida with Senators Rubio and Nelson, and we continue to talk to them. At the federal level, there's been a House Appropriations Committee that has passed a bill back in June. And within that bill, there are severe cuts to some of the federally funded nutrition programs that have existed for decades. Things like food stamps, okay, it's now called SNAP. WIC, which stands for Women, Infant, and Children, really valuable, cost-effective program. The USDA commodity program, you know, severe cuts to that. If that goes through the Senate this fall unchanged, there's going to be a severe impact to Central Florida, across the country, but to bring it home locally, so to speak. If that cut went through, that would equate into at least 1 million less meals for people in need. And when you think of the kids, you know, 1 in 4, almost 1 in 3 in some of the counties, you know, kids in circumstances beyond their control. We're talking about nutritious food. And if kids don't get proper nutrition, there's medical study after medical study that there's...
What can we do?
What can we do? You know, there's 3 or 4 things that can be done. And everybody, no matter what age or what background or whatever, can come to the table. The first thing is, you know, whether it's at Second Harvest or at a food pantry or another nonprofit, you know, locally, volunteer. Give up your time if you can. It makes a huge difference. In terms of food, conduct a food drive at your place of business or school or place of worship, you know, or your family, you know. That helps. Or participate in a large food drive in the community that's going on, like this fall, Scouting for Food. You know, it's huge. So you have, you know, volunteering, that your time, food. If you know, a lot of us still have jobs, you know, and financially we're okay, you know, financial donations, and you talked about the efficiency of that, you know, that it goes a long, long way. And then the fourth thing really, and it gets back to this public policy or legislation, is maybe become an advocate. You know, if you're interested in what to say to these legislators, you know, we have a very simple message. We have contact information if people want to contact us, to write a letter, send an email. a lot of people think, it's not going to make a difference.
But there are a lot of ways that
There
we can
are
help
a
you.
lot of
Yes.
ways.
Dave,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
No,
being on the show today. And
it's a
thank
pleasure.
you for the service that you do for the community as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've been talking with Dave Krepcho, President and CEO of the Second Harvest Food Bank. If you would like to get involved with Second Harvest, visit www.foodbankcentralflorida.org. Also visit the Metro Center's new interactive website where you can weigh in on a discussion about hunger. I'm Diane Trees. Thank you for joining me on UCF Metro Center Outlook.
This program is made possible by funding from the UCF Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.